Just last.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode, of Hollywood Matrimony Live. My dog is tripping over here on the side of the stage, but he's okay. Today, we're talking about the movie Heretic.
Yay!
This is not a yay kind of movie, dude. Let's watch the trailer.
We didn't see the same movie.
Wow. Let's watch this trailer.
Hi, good afternoon, ma'am. Are you interested in learning about our Savior, Jesus Christ? Hi, good afternoon. Hi, are you? My name is Sister Barnes, and oh my gosh. Are you interested in learning more about the Church of Jesus Christ?
Come on in.
We can't come inside unless another woman is present.
My wife is home. Does that count?
Great.
You like pie?
Yeah.
My wife has pie in the oven.
I can tell that you are a very spiritually curious person.
I think it is good to be religious, to find your faith in a doctrine you actually believe.
Well, our work here is done.
And I will go and check on the pie.
So sleep, silent angel.
You fit through this? You're crazy.
We just need to go home.
I won't keep you if you wish to leave. But I want you to choose which door to go through based on your faith.
What does this have to do with us leaving?
Everything.
I think that we're being studied.
It will make your hearts beat faster. It may even make you want to die. Do not be afraid. You will witness a miracle.
Okay, let's talk about it because this movie's crazy.
Yeah, one of the things, like the trailers of this movie were really intriguing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And even more so that I think this might be Hugh Grant's first horror film. I mean, he may have done something else that I just don't remember, but I can't remember any time of seeing him in a movie like this. It's either a comedy or a rom-com or a drama. But so I was interested to see how he pulled this off, and the narrative of the trailer looked like it could go in tons of different ways.
Yeah, for sure.
So diving into this, initially I was like, when we meet the two girls, they're Mormons, and I'm like, it's kind of slogging along. But thankfully, it's just a few minutes. It's not very long. So I'm like, okay, we just get enough information about them to move forward. But once they step into that house, the movie becomes fantastic. If nothing else, before you even get into the meat of the, I guess, the terror side of it, even though it's not really scary.
You talk to your dog. Stop.
Sabine, that's your dog.
She's trying to get to my snacks.
Oh, stop it. Yeah, how about I move it over here? Maybe I'll get it to come down on this side. Sabine, come over here.
Wow.
The dialogue between Grant and these two girls is so engaging.
Yes.
I could have just watched a movie about them discussing.
Yeah, you just have to really
what religious
pay attention.
theology, is that the right word?
Yes.
I could have watched that for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Because part of it is the attention to detail of whoever wrote it. They put in some thought and the comparisons and the different things of the different types of religions, and it doesn't bash any religion. It doesn't push any religion, and it doesn't play sides.
Yeah.
It's like he's that guy in the middle that's very much, but this is all the same. Why is this one important than the other? And it kind of made me think like I kind of agree with what he's doing here until he,
until he
he
goes
gets
off
a little
the
more
rails.
off the rails.
A little off the rails. Yeah, I thought it was interesting, and I think this is one of those. See, this to me is the way I feel like normal people should be able to discuss religion and theology, not the crazy part.
Right.
You
No,
do
the
find
crazy
out
part should be okay.
you
too.
do find out he is a little bit crazy, which makes it kind of the horror thriller aspect of it. But we should be able
But he's not wrong either.
to have a good sit down and have a good theological discussion. Not even well, I guess it was a little bit of a debate at point about, well, this major religion says this, and so does this, and so does this. So out of the three major ones, because there are the big three, they all basically have your same fundamental tenets. So who's to say one's right and one's wrong? However, each within themselves say they're the right ones and the others are wrong.
Right.
So what this
Which
is
is
where
one
we
of the
get
problems,
into,
in my opinion, with religion is you have too many.
Everybody thinks they're right.
Everybody thinks they're right,
I'm sorry,
and
I'm
it's
kicking
always you're fine. It's always
I need to always have my
if you
leg
don't
up.
believe what I believe, you're wrong.
Correct.
Whereas my thought process, I mean, you've had this discussion a billion times, has always been if we do in fact live in a world that was created by God, and
a singular God.
A God. I'm not saying I grew up Christian. I believe in God, all that kind of stuff. But if that is in fact the case, then there's got to be a reason these other religions exist.
Right.
And a lot of that for me has come down to my own theories is because we have so many different cultures throughout the world, the understanding and the way that culture would be needing to believe in a certain way is dictated in a way that religion is presented to them, because the underlining theme of non-radical religions is the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's love, it's being good people.
Correct.
It's not always about worshiping a deity. There's just something there that's supposed to be there, whether it's a god or multiple gods or whatever you believe in. But the foundation is being a good person, loving each other, supporting people.
The same basic, what I guess Christians would know as the Ten Commandments, or the same tenets you find as well in Islam and in Judaism. I mean, the whole thou shalt not kill, love your neighbor, do unto others, don't steal, don't do these things. So everyone has the same basic theological points and ideologies as a basis. And then from there comes the springing of the gods or the deities and who you worship and how you worship. I mean, there's rules and regulations of all these things within each one.
What I found funny as we're watching this is, for those that don't know, if you haven't figured it out by now, despite us both being Christian people, I have the more open view of, I want to hear what you have to say. I believe in multiple reasons of things. I think a lot of it is theory. I think a lot of it is metaphor, where she's a little heavier on the Christian.
I believe it's quite literal.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that one of us are right or wrong.
No.
We don't fight about it. It's a discussion.
We have a good discussion about it, and I felt like that's what this was. Except he goes obviously on a deep end.
Yeah, but I think I like that.
Stop. You need to go sit down.
Get down.
Get down. I hate to yell at you on national TV.
I like that.
Lie down.
He's giving history points.
Yes.
Not just saying this, and like there's one part that was kind of cracked me up as we're watching it, because he would say something. So we're in our theater. And she's in the front row, I'm in the back, and at our house. And I don't know, people think we went to the movie theater.
We sat in our same room.
But she'd be like, exactly. She's like, that's what you believe. She's doing this in the movie. And it's like, and we're seeing one person with both sides. Yeah,
and I find that to be interesting. I do think, though, at some point, that the most dangerous person is a person with so much information that they get into this circle of whatever. And I feel like at some point that's where he was in a tailspin of like, but if you go around, everybody says to him, everybody like what's the actual root?
But
so to me that's dangerous.
Is that dangerous?
But
or is that
again
that puts the kibosh on the nonsense?
Well,
because when you have the information, it makes you start thinking for yourself. It makes you, and that's what people say that the most dangerous citizens are informed citizens, because when it comes to government and laws, and when you know things, then it makes you more dangerous because you can stand up with facts.
Yeah, but then that I think drives him a little bit mad.
Yeah.
That's the dangerous part.
Yeah, there's no
I
doubt.
agree with him. I think it is important. I think I'm going to blow people's minds. I think it's important as someone who claims to be Christian or religious that you actually study your religion and study all the other religions as well. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I think there's a sad...
You need to know what it is you believe in and where it came from.
There's a sad dynamic in all religions where you're taught, not even necessarily by the religion itself, you're taught by the people that are your leaders in religion, whether it's a pope or a pastor or a priest or a rabbi, whatever. You're taught that the thing we're teaching you is facts. The thing that we're teaching you is the way it is. Everything else is incorrect.
Right.
Everything else is wrong. If you believe this, then you're no longer going to heaven or whatever. And I think that's doing a disjustice for a couple of things. I think one, it's making people stupid. To blind follow anything, I think you're stupid.
Yeah, you need to study for yourself.
And I'm not saying that people that follow the Bible are stupid. I'm saying if you just walk in there and you say, oh, okay, and you know nothing other than what you read in the Bible, you didn't think about it, you didn't study the stories.
My issue is the people that are posting Bible quotes and you never even read it yourself and went to go study what it means.
Or don't go to church, and when you ask them about it, their story is like, well, you know, I grew up with this thing and somebody had told me about this and then I found God and okay, that's fine. But I totally disagree with her mentality of
you need to study.
You need to go to church or you're supposed to be witnessing to other people, because I think, like, my biggest issue with religion that I'll tell you verbally, I have an issue with the organized religion. And it's mostly because most people don't go to church to study church. They go, especially the bigger churches, they go so that it's a popularity contest. It's like being in school again. Who has the most fanciest outfit and the biggest head? Oh, I totally agree. It shouldn't be. But then do I really want to listen to the person that's on the stage who is reading the same thing I'm reading, but we're interpreting it a different way?
Well, that's what Sunday school's for, Bible study classes for, so you can talk about it.
Yeah, but most churches aren't like that. They don't give you the option, because if you question it, all they do is go out of their way to tell you why your questioning is wrong. I've never been to a church, and I've been to a bunch of them. I've never been to a church where they say, when you question something, and I'm not meaning like in a rude way, just being like, well, don't you think this is a metaphor to such and such, such and such? Instead, they're like, no, this is what happened. And I'm like, okay, well, this seems... And they always just want to make you, no. The Bible says. It's always the Bible says. The Bible says this. I said, I see what the Bible says. But why can't we discuss, why couldn't something with a burning bush, I'm just grabbing, that's something that's kind of supernatural-esque. A burning bush couldn't have been a metaphor of what was happening at the time. Or Jonah in the well, or
it was a giant
the Noah's
fish,
Ark, or the different things that don't.
I don't correct you.
I know that, but it depends on who you ask. But the logistics of a lot of things in the Bible make sense and are great stories if you see them as metaphors. But if you look at them as a legitimacy of factual, it's way more over the top.
It is obvious. It absolutely is. And I'm one of those people that believes in a literal interpretation of the Bible. And I understand there are some things that are fantastical. But that's why there were miracles, because it's not, I don't know. But see, this is a whole other thing that leads us to the whole point of this movie. Yeah. What is your level of faith? Because he tells them, okay, if you want to escape the house, pick a door. Do you believe or do you not believe? Like, do you really
And I do
believe?
Want to say before, we went off this whole tangent because we can do this for hours.
But
he is amazing in this movie. He
is so good in this and so creepy. But you know what?
It's his nuances.
Because he's not actually creepy.
No.
He's trying to have...
uncomfortable.
He's trying to have just a nice discussion, but these two young girls that shouldn't have been in the house to begin with, because doctrine, I would say that too, just as a young woman, they'll go into a random house.
In their defense, though, he tricked them into coming in.
He tricked them in, so they're uncomfortable. They're trying to get out, and he's wanting to have a theological debate about the major religions. And he's like, oh, and then there's Mormon, the new version of what was already here. You know, he busted out to them.
Well, I liked it because
that was so
I like that element because you look at
remakes and redos.
And forgive me if I don't know in detail, but there's two different kinds of Mormons. There are the Mormons that had the multiple wives, and then there's the more current Mormons.
Yeah, well,
And-
supposedly polygamy's been
I
out.
know, but I mean, and I know there may be even more levels. So
Yeah.
forgive me. I have a friend who's Mormon. He never had multiple wives, and he doesn't practice anymore. But that's the extent of my. I went to his church a few times, but he does point that out in this movie. It's like, well, what do you think about this?
Mhm.
Well, we don't do that anymore, but that's part of this. Why don't you do it now? Well, we don't think
Mhm.
it's necessary. Here's why we did it. And then he's like, well, I think he just did it because he just wanted to have sex with more people.
Yeah,
And
that's what I thought too.
to me, a non-Christian person, non-Mormon person from Baptist or Catholicism or whatever, probably think that same thing. But somebody that comes to their side sees it and says, oh, that makes sense, or we're trying to repopulate or whatever, and that's not necessity anymore. So again, it goes back into those, a lot of biblical stuff can be an easy interpretation or matter of opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and if you just look
Hence
up
why it's faith, not fact.
correct, and so if you look at just the different types, there's the Latter-day Saints, which is the large denomination that identify, 95% of Mormons say they're that church.
Yeah.
Then you have the fundamentalists, which are the polygamists, supposedly. There's now a group that are like the gay Mormons that believe that you can be gay and be Mormon. There's, African American Mormons, the Latino
We don't have to go through every
Mormons.
connection of
I
the
mean,
Mormons.
no, there's different group, the Native Americans, because remember Jesus came to talk to the Native Americans and the
And I do love that they
So
use the
there's-
Mormons because it's an easier an element of going door to door, and
Yes.
you can request them come.
And yes,
And that's
you
why
can
they're at this
request,
house.
and that's why they came, because he said what he wanted more information.
Because I was concerned with, and talking about the way the movie is set up, crafted. From the trailer, you just get they showed up, he invited me. I'm like, okay, how was he prepared for this? But in
he
this
was
case, you
prepared to-
realize that
dude,
he asked them to come because he wanted to hear more about the Mormon religion, and
and
so they
he
made the
busted
point
out
that-
his Book of Mormon with all the flags and the
Yeah,
tab. I was like,
that was
oh
such a-
dang,
that was a genius, subtle
like,
thing that you say that he's been
dang.
researching.
he
You
knew.
know, and all the tags and everything.
He had the flippy text. Here's the interesting thing I found out. The two young ladies that are in the movie, the main people, Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East, both grew up in the Mormon church. So it's really interesting. They're no longer Mormon, FYI. So the two young ladies that are in the movie, they grew up, so they thought, they're like, okay, these are roles we can get into. We can really understand it. The dialogue and stuff makes sense to us. The theology makes sense. And it's so interesting.
Now,
I'd be interested to know
the
Hugh
later
Grant's
half of the film, once they go through the doors,
connection.
the movie seemingly takes kind of a supernatural turn, but in reality, it's way more grounded in reality than you think.
Horror.
And it's a little more creepy, terrifying, because the realism sneaks in to what is going on. And I love, without spoiling it. You kind of figured it out. I kind of had a variation of it.
I was like, I knew something.
Because the part of his thing is he's trying to figure out what is the one true religion.
Yep.
And that's the discussion that he kind of brings up. And his reveal of the one true religion is not wrong.
No, it's
because
not.
It falls through every religion and life, government.
And I knew as soon as he's like, okay, what's the answer? I was like, oh, I know this is what they're gonna say, it was, and I was like,
and it falls outside of religion too, because it's a very
in and out.
powerful.
But it's interesting because that part of religion we see so much come through sometimes in cults, but also in your mainstream religions. There's a lot of this at work. I don't want to spoil it, but there's so much of that at work, and what you were saying that people just blindly follow because they told me so.
Well, and a lot of religions rule through fear.
Yeah.
It's you go to church, you believe in God, or you go and burn in hell.
Yeah.
And it's not as welcoming as the idea should be.
Mm-hmm.
It's, if you don't believe this, you will burn forever in hell.
Yeah.
And so, and every religion has a version of that, of you will be tortured, you will be miserable, you will suffer if you don't follow this.
Correct.
And it's the same way of dictators or, terrorists or whatever. It's like, you don't do what we do, we're going to kill you for it. And so it's interesting how that kind of flows to a little bit of everything,
This movie's all over the place, but it's
a really good movie.
Good and very well thought out, very well crafted. The script it's tightly written. It's very well researched. Theological points. I think there was only one thing that he said that I did that was like, no, that's wrong. But
is it wrong because of your belief.
I think maybe so. The way I've been interpreting
Indoctrined.
No, the way I've interpreted I'm like, no, that's not actually right.
See what I just said, though?
I know.
See, then therein lies your
I don't
issue.
think I've been indoctrinated.
I don't mean indoctrinated, but I'm
Because
talking about when you say the thing I've interpreted.
Yes.
And therein lies
And I'm
the
saying
issue. I have ongoing issues with some of that because we can all see it differently.
And I agree with some of the points he makes of historical blotties because I agree that's true. But that's why it's so important that you actually study whatever it is you believe in.
Can we just say, even forgetting religion?
Yeah, anything
if
you're
gonna comment or say anything about anything,
study.
Make sure you know
Look it up.
in your mouth. Stop.
Look it up.
Because there was stuff like when we talked about we discussed Gladiator 2 about the Colosseums filled with water and people saying how ridiculous it was.
It is ridiculous, but they did that.
And there's different things that come out in movies or books or stories, and people are like, "That's just the stupidest thing I ever heard." Or, you do know this happened, right? Or this really happened in history or whatever. But because some of the most unbelievable things in the world really happened.
Actually happened.
And even though with religion, especially Bible stuff, there's so many stories there that are fantastical that there's no way to prove them. But again, that's where your faith comes into that.
And I think that's to me is the whole point of this movie is through everything that happens, even the horror elements, the craziness, the just trying to get out alive elements of the movie. It's like that's where where is your faith lie?
And so anybody knows that's worried about watching this.
It's not scary.
It's not a scary movie. It's not a bloody, gory movie.
It's psychological.
It is psychological. Yeah, it's more of a thriller than horror. But it is terrifying.
At one point, I was like, "Oh my gosh, is this going to be like that movie with Jay Hernandez where you have to get through the traps? What was that movie?
Hostel.
I was like, "Oh my gosh, am I going to get tied up and have to find a way out?"
He didn't. That's not how that movie played.
Isn't that what it is?
You're blending Saw and Hostel into one
maybe
movie.
I'm thinking Saw. It was like Saw. Am I going to have to play a game?
You're blending two movies into the same
story. Am I going to have to play a game to get out of this trap?
Both fantastic films.
Yeah.
But
they were both kind of creepy.
Yeah, I wasn't aware. Really didn't expect it to go the direction it did and how it was played out, which I loved. There's also a really clever, without really talking about it. I even asked her to make sure I was seeing it the same way of like the depictions of like the 7 layers of hell.
Mm-hmm.
That's a subtle background thing that if you don't think about it or notice, you won't even catch on to it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I really enjoyed this film.
It was really good and it's very smart, and I feel like some people are going to be offended. I think the people that are easily shaken in their faith or just believe the little Bible verse that somebody told them, you're going to be like, what?
You're also going to have, it's also going to be the hardcore people that stick to one religion and they refuse to see anything else.
That's what I'm saying.
They're going to be that way
but those to me are the people that are very frail in their belief because they have not taken the time to study. And I'm sorry, I'm one of those people that believe if you have chosen a religion, I hope you studied all the others before you made your choice, because I think that's the only way to make an informed decision.
Yeah,
I studied all of them. I'm not as detailed as the movie. I didn't get into all of that, but you need to understand all your major religions, what everyone believes. I think it's important too. If you claim
it also will help you connect with humans.
I think if you claim to be the person that God has sent me out to preach to the world, okay, well, you need to know what the world believes before you can speak to them.
And and it has nothing to do with this movie, but I have a distinct issue with people going to other countries. People probably
think I'm a crazy Christian.
Well, I have a distinct problem with people going to other countries that is not a Christian country to push Christianity. Again, that's because I understand their thought process is we're supposed to witness.
Yeah, I get it.
But I think
when the opportunity is presented,
I also have a problem with people that witness to people like just ambush them at work, at the gas station, or they're watching a football game and they lean over and it's like, "Hey, you want to talk about Jesus?" I don't like that stuff.
Yeah.
I think if somebody's having a bad day or you see somebody in need or you help a homeless person and they're like, "Hey, what's going on with you?" And they're like, "Man, do you want me to pray with you or do you want to?" That's perfect. I see that. Mm-hmm. But the reason I think most religions get pushed off to the side is it's that forced in your face thing.
Yeah.
And I think going to another country, because of my firm belief that Buddhism and Hinduism and all these things exist through God because that culture needed something to make it understandable for the way that culture lives.
I understand that's your theory. I'm okay.
You what?
I understand that's your theory.
No, and I believe that because I don't understand, and there's no way to explain why they would exist if God created all this. Everybody's excuse is always like, well, God is Christianity. The devil created everything else. And it's like, that can't be true.
That
can't be, because if God
is a false interpretation of the information.
Well, I know that. I'm just saying, if God is that powerful, there's a reason those exist. There's got to be.
Yeah. I know.
So
that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
That's a whole other study.
I'm just saying. So that's kind of it goes with this movie because it's like the Mormons showing up. In this case, he asked them. I'm totally cool.
And
with
I think it like you. People are gonna think I'm like the craziest Christian ever. I'm gonna just tell you, I'm super hardcore. But I also believe there's a time and a place to have these discussions. I think when God presents the opportunity or puts someone in your path, it is your responsibility to speak to them. There is a verse in the Bible that says that the blood will be on your hands if you didn't speak to them and you had the opportunity. So I think God presents you with opportunities. I agree with you. There's not always an opportune time.
You shouldn't be making the opportunity.
You can't get, I don't think getting in people's face about you're going to burn in hell. That is the worst thing you could ever do. I think there's a time and place. I remember specifically one time I was in Istanbul. It's a Muslim country. I was told not to say Jesus and all these things. I'm like, you know what, fine, whatever. But the opportunity presented for me to have a wonderful conversation with this young man about Islam and what they believe and kind of their commandment. I'm like, oh, well, you know, in my faith, Christian faith, I also have the 10 commandments. We believe this. And he's like, oh, we believe the same thing. I'm like, great. So we had a really good discussion. He heard something he'd never heard before. He'd never heard about the Christian God. He'd never heard about the Bible. So I shared a little bit. I wasn't trying to convert him. I was trying to share and plant a seed because that's what we're called to do. And then God takes care of the rest. So, you know, I think there's time and place for all of these conversations. I just don't think going around you're going to burn in hell is the way to do it. And I firmly believe if you're going to believe in a religion, you had better have studied everything before you've landed on a belief, not just because this is what my grandpappy taught me.
Yeah.
That is the worst reason, but whatever. I mean, and I think people can be strongly rooted in their faith that way, but I think some people just go with the flow and believe what everybody else believes, and they're posting, Jesus loves me, God died for me, awesome, but they don't really understand the true depth and meaning of that. So then if this crazy guy tries to trap you in the house, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I don't know. This movie opened up a lot for me.
Well,
I kept thinking about this all night long.
I think the one thing that I think is, before we wrap this up, that I think is what shows how effective this movie is no matter what your belief is, whether you're an atheist or
that's what
Christian,
I was like,
or
he's
anything
just going
else,
to be satanic.
It's going to open a discussion. Whether you like it or don't like it. And if it doesn't open a discussion, or you're not willing to have a discussion, then you have a problem.
You need to dig deep.
And it's the same issue we have with politics, with race, with sexualities. People are not willing to have the discussion. But and a discussion involves two people listening.
Yeah.
It isn't absolutely one person talking and making the other person hear them while they don't listen to you.
Yeah.
So either way, I thought this movie was fantastic.
It was a really good, thought-provoking movie.
If you don't want to get into
a little bit creepy,
if you don't want to get in the depths of the religion stuff, you can still enjoy this movie for what it is.
Absolutely.
Even if you're not religious, it doesn't matter. You might buy into it even more. But I thought it was clever, creative, well written, perfectly acted.
He's so creepy.
And there is talks of could this become a franchise of some sort? And I believe they said they do have some other ideas of different scenarios. Maybe not the same people,
Yeah.
But different scenarios and religious theme things. So who knows? We'll see. The movie's done fairly well, but I don't know if it's going to hit. But check out Heretic. It's in theaters now.
Okie dokie. Tell me about our giveaways.
We have some bunches of giveaways. We still got 4K copies of the original Terminator and Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest, as well as Mel Brooks.
Wow.
Genius comedy Blazing Saddles. Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, that's also celebrating its 10th anniversary.
Nice.
Watchmen Chapter 2. I finally didn't say The Watchmen. And some digital copies of Conclave.
I want to see that.
All available on our website at
HollywoodMatrimony.com. We'll see you next time.
Peace out.